Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Mount Olive Township Council meeting and workshop session for June 13, 2017. If everyone would please stand and for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silence for all those that serve us. And I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I asked the council president to recognize me at this time. We had a very tragic loss of a young life in Mount Olive Township last week. And I just wanted to read from her life, which Bridget Ann Marie Quinn, 20 of Mount Olive, New Jersey, passed away suddenly on June 8, 2017 in Cape Coral, Florida. Bridget was born on December 7, 1996 in Hackettstown, New Jersey, and has spent her entire life in Mount Olive, New Jersey. She was a graduate of Mount Olive High School and recently received her associate's degree from County College of Morris. Bridget had a drive to be successful both in her education and her goals she set for herself. She was planning on attending the College of New Jersey in the fall and had dreams of being a forensic accountant for the FBI. She was an avid reader and could often be found with a book in her hands. Bridget was also very talented, had a love for music, and taught herself to play the guitar and piano. She loved photography, and if she didn't have a book in her hand, you would find her with her camera. Bridget enjoyed the outdoors, hiking and snowboarding. She enjoyed taking trips with family, friends, and her boyfriend Lucas. She traveled to Vermont, Ireland, Canada, and across the United States within the past year. Bridget is survived by her parents, Sean and Dorothy Quinn, her sisters, Colleen, Kerry, and Erin, and by many loving aunts, uncles, and cousins. To the Quinn family, I know I speak for all of us, our condolences, and whatever we can do as a township, I let them know that we're here for them.
Thank you. Michelle, would you read the Open Public Meetings Act, please?
According to the Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of this meeting has been given to the Daily Record. Notice has been posted in the Municipal Building, 204 Flanders Drakestown Road, Bud Lake, New Jersey, and notices were sent to those requesting the same.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Amianda?
Here.
Mr. Ferrante?
Here.
Mrs. Labau? Here. Mr. Mania?
Here.
Mr. Stewart?
Here.
Mr. Roman?
Here.
Mr. Nicastro?
Here. And we have a first order of business is a presentation we have for our new logo, which looks phenomenal. And I believe Claudia or the mayor or someone has a presentation for the
unveiling. And call them up also.
Kevin and Ryan? Kevin Ryan and Phil, do you want to come up?
Okay.
You guys want to, you guys want to hold it, you can present it to the village. These boys have been working on this with they've been working on this together for quite a while now with their graphics teacher at school, Mrs. Megan Boyd, who has their graphics teacher, who has just phenomenal. She has helped them, led them, and also been my contact with them. And it has taken, I can't even tell you how many times back and forth, add this, add that, different ideas coming back and forth, and we finally came up with this. And I cannot thank the boys enough for showing what we wanted to present Mount Olive as including Bud Lake and Flanders, showing the central part of our town, which is Turkey Brook Park, presenting the entrance to Turkey Brook Park. And I'm eternally grateful for what they've done, because this is going to be around for a really long time, and I hope they realize what they've done and the importance of it.
Good hand.
now.
For successfully designing this, we have obviously check for both of you. And so this is for Kevin, Brian Nealon, in the amount of $500. Congratulations. And then also for Phil, a check for $500. Good luck trying to cash these. Yes, both in the picture now. Need you have a check. Maybe you hold this. Hold this,
I like how the check says the logo.
I'm sure your
Yeah.
family and friends will be
Yeah.
proud of your effort. I wish you much success in the future, and you'll always be a part of Mount Olive now. So.
Yes, congratulations. Good job.
Thank you so much for coming.
Souvenir check, look at that.
Don't worry, the real one will be here in a couple months.
Yeah, there you go.
It's in the mail.
Good job, guys, appreciate it
Check's in the
very
mail.
much. Really nice. Thank you. 2 items for discussion.
Do you want to let them know that it's not,
Yeah,
if they
it's-
don't want to stay?
If you don't want to stay, I was going to say, if you don't want to stay, you don't have
You
to.
still get the checks.
You know,
You don't want to be bored.
So it's, yeah,
Yeah.
Oh, happy
there you go,
birthday.
happy birthday.
Now they gotta treat you. They got $500.
That's right.
No, he said no.
Thank you again, guys, congratulations.
Bye-bye, thank you.
Thank you.
I still want to put him over here. Rob. Technical? Legal, oh, are they really? Oh, I guess I can take a picture. Anyway, going on the sidebar there. 2 items for discussion. The first item up, I know Mr. Mania, these are 2 items you want to discuss, the AVM security cameras and the 911 flag.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm hoping that the township would consider putting security cameras at the All Veterans Memorial. A lot of money has been spent there, and I'm hoping that we could do something. Just last week, there was an incident, and this is a small item, but a kid riding a bicycle was crashing into things at the AVM. And when the mother was told to stop him, she got very belligerent. So I'm hoping we can do something.
We have other cameras up there in certain areas, obviously.
Right.
I don't know if we can add to them, or maybe, I'm not sure what we have.
I have no idea whether or not there's actually coverage up there at this point in time.
Okay.
There may be, and if not, it's certainly something that we can consider in next year's budget.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yep.
And the other item that I have is, I'd like to see a flag behind the 9/11 memorial. People have approached me asking me why we don't have one.
Again, that's something that can certainly be raised in next year's budget.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Are you talking about a US flag?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Yep.
Can be Italian flag underneath.
No, I didn't know if there was a 9/11 specific flag you were referring to.
Yep. So we can bring that up at the end of the year for the budget coming up in the fall and present that to them. We'll make sure we
Good.
get that.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Mr. President.
Thank you. We have 14 resolutions. Does anyone have any questions, concerns, anything on the 14 resolutions?
No.
Seeing none, we have 1 ordinance for the amendment and supplement of Chapter 367, rates, the Code Township towing. Does anyone have any questions, comments on that ordinance? Mr. Rowan? Go ahead.
I'll make a comment on the towing ordinance. Yesterday, I'm sure we're all aware there were a couple of accidents that not only caused a lot of damage, but inconvenienced a lot of people. And though we praise the police and the EMS and the fire when the response, one that gets neglected is the people that have to clean up after the accident. And I when I saw that this ordinance was here to increase the rates, that, obviously I went instantly to see how much they're asking, and with all due respect, it is below what private haulers now get for towing and for the amount of cleanup that they do. And they're on call 24 hours. Obviously this ordinance was approved by the police and various other departments, but, let's not forget that these gentlemen do a lot of work in sometimes very dangerous conditions. And I'm glad to see that the rates are increasing so they can be properly compensated.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, any old business? Seeing none, any new business?
Well, sort of new, sort of old. I
Okay.
just wanted to
In
say.
between business.
In between. We were talking about with the accident yesterday, that it also, just on another note, I had a home inspection yesterday. We had to cancel it because the power was out.
Yeah.
It was like everybody in the heat was, and these things happen,
Yeah,
It's-
it happens. Our office was out all
it's-
day. It happens. We sent everybody home.
I know, and
That
it's
was it.
like, it's really scary, and
As
you
long
just
as-
wonder what's going on.
Yeah, it was a tough one yesterday. Anyone from the public wish to be heard? Seeing none, close to the public. Do we have a motion to adjourn? So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None? Okay. Hold on one second, I got the wrong one here. Open up the Mount Olive Township Council meeting for June 13th, 2017. Michelle, would you read the Open Public Meetings Act, please?
According to the Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of this meeting has been given to the Daily Record. Notice has been posted in the Municipal Building, 204 Flanders Drakestown Road, Bud Lake, New Jersey, and notices were sent to those requesting the same.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Amianda?
Here.
Mr. Ferrante?
Here.
Mrs. Labow?
Here,
Mr. Mania?
Here.
Mr. Stewart?
Here.
Mr. Roman?
Here.
Mr. Nacastro?
Here. We have 25 oh wait, I'm sorry. Mr. Amianda, would you make a motion to approve the minutes from May 30th, 2017 workshop and public meeting and closed session, please?
Yes, Mr. President. I make a motion for approval of the minutes of the previous meetings on May 30th, 2017, work session and public meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Amianda?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrante?
Yes.
Mrs. Labow?
yes.
Mr. Mania?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Mr. Robin?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes. Let's see. Yeah. So, open the hearing to the public on, oh, I'm sorry, I thought we did those. We have 25 pieces of correspondence. Does anyone have any things on those? Thank you. Open up the meeting to the public on ordinance number 14-2017, entitled Bond Ordinance Amending Its Entirety, section of Bond Ordinances numbered 10-2015 through 4-2016 of the Township of Mount Olive in the County of Morris, New Jersey, finally adopted March 17, 2015, and March 8, 2016, in order to amend the description of the project of each ordinance to include Sutton Take painting and improvements. Mr. Ferrante?
Sure, I move for adoption and final passage, ordinance number 14-2017.
Second,
Anyone from the public wish to be heard? Seeing none, close to the public. Any counsel? None? Ordinance number 14-2017 is passed on second reading, and I hereby direct the clerk to forward a copy of the same to the mayor. Published notice of adoption is required by law. Roll call, please.
Mr. Amianda?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrante?
Yes.
Mrs. Labow?
yes.
Mr. Mania?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes. Next item on the agenda for first reading is ordinance number 2015, an ordinance to amend the supplement chapter 367-8, rates of the code of the Township of Mount Olive Towing. Mr. Mania.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that ordinance number 15-2017 be introduced by title and passed on first reading, and that a meeting will be held on June 27, 2017, at 7 p.m. at the Municipal Building, 204 Flanders Drakestown Road, Bud Lake, New Jersey, for a public hearing, consideration of second reading, and passage of said ordinance, and that the clerk be directed to publish, post, and make available said ordinance in accordance with the requirements of the law.
Second.
You're talking about 16-2017, 15 was pulled.
No,
No,
it's
You get the
15.
memo?
It's 15.
It's
Okay, I
renumbered,
didn't-
so I kept everything in order.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's renumbered. Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second?
Any
Second.
council discussion? Anyone from the public wish to be heard? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Almayanda?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrante?
Yes.
Mrs. Labow?
Yes.
Mr. Mania?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes. We have 14 consent resolutions. Anyone wish to move any non-consent? Seeing none, Mr. Stewart, would you move consent resolutions 1 through 14?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I move for adoption and final passage, consent resolutions 1 through 14.
Second?
Anyone from the public wish to be heard? Seeing none, close to the public. Anyone from council? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Almayanda?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrante?
Yes.
Mrs. Labow?
Yes.
Mr. Mania?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes. Mr. Roman, would you please move the bill list?
I move for approval the bill list.
Second?
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Almayanda?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrante?
Yes.
Mrs. Labow?
Yes.
Mr. Mania?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Abstain on check 80420 and yes to all others. Administrative reports.
Go ahead, Bob.
Actually, let me introduce myself. Many of the people on the board I don't know. My name is Bob Casey. I'm here second week as your interim. I'm here every Tuesday and Thursday. If anyone ever has any questions, please contact me. Otherwise, I have nothing to add to the agenda tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
I like him already.
Mr. Mayor?
We're very fortunate to have Bob here. He is a consummate professional. He brings a wealth of knowledge to the position, and even at 2 days a week, he is able to handle the workload of the township. So we all should consider ourselves very fortunate in that regard. I think this is probably Bob's third stint with the township in a temporary capacity. Isn't it? Third or fourth?
It's like indigestion. Every so many years comes back.
Yeah. That thing brings several comments to mind, but I'll hold them. Couple things. First of all, I want to congratulate Greg on his award that he's receiving tomorrow night.
Thank you.
As
Thank you.
Businessman of the Year. Certainly well-deserved, and your efforts on behalf of the township, both here on the council and in the business community and for the Chamber of Commerce, do not go unnoticed, and it's an award which is long overdue, so congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Okay, the next thing I wanted to talk about very briefly is the ordinance which we pulled with respect to the sign ordinance, and you may end up hearing things out there which are completely untrue. I've already heard that someone is going to attack me as a result of pulling that. The bottom line is that there were some issues which were raised by an attorney of somebody who had an interest in ultimately what ordinance is adopted by the township. Fred Semero felt that it was best that meeting be convened of the professionals to hear what the concerns were, so that when we move forward with an ordinance, everyone's concerns at least are in or have been addressed. So for that reason, Fred suggested that we just carry it for 2 weeks to see if the concerns have any validity, and if they do, before we introduce and spend the money to introduce and then have to pull it back and reintroduce, it made sense to handle it that way. And so I spoke to Joe Nacastro and explained exactly what Fred had discussed with me, and that's why that particular ordinance was pulled. There's no great rush to get this through. We should get it through in as best a fashion as we can, just like we should with every piece of legislation that we look at and adopt. On to the lighter side at this point, this Saturday is Raiders of the Lost Park. Pre-registration closes tomorrow evening at 11:59. It's one of our most popular events. If you're around and you can just stop by or participate. Are you going to participate this year? That's great. Waves begin at 9 a.m. and once again, special thanks to Sam's Club for being a presenting sponsor. Sam's Club has stepped up to the plate on behalf of the municipality so many times. which brings me to the next event, which is Sam's Club will once again be honoring our hometown heroes and first responders as they do every year. Friday, June 30th, 9:30 a.m. at the Sam's Club facility, 81 International Drive South. Lastly, I would like to wish everyone up here a happy Father's Day.
Thank you.
And yeah, to you as well, because you
Thank you.
participated. And I hope that everyone has a wonderful day. And again, I think I would be remiss if I didn't send my condolences to the Quinn family. I know that all of us up here really wish the family the best in this tragic set of events that have unfolded.
She was only 20 years old.
20
right?
years old.
Agreed,
It's
Mayor.
much too
Thank
young.
you for bringing
How
that up,
sad.
too. Thank you.
Yes, I went to the wake today. It was just, it was
Yeah,
heartbreaking.
It has to be. Anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Any old business? Seeing none, any new business? Seeing none, any legal matters?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just one item regarding the settlement agreement with Ms. Harris. That's been fully executed, so that matter is now closed. And that's
Thank
it
you.
for tonight.
Thank you very much. Council reports, Mr. Amianda, anything on Board of Ed or seniors?
Yes, Mr. President. Mount Olive School Board held its work session meeting on Monday, June 12, 2017 at 6:30 p.m. at the Administration Building. After opening activities and reports, Dr. Larry Reynolds, Superintendent of Schools, gave a report on security issues, welcoming of students from China, and construction of air domes on school campus. Dr. Reynolds added that Chinese students will pay school fees and living expenses. Students will be housed by families of Mount Olive Township. The space in air domes will be rented to the public. The air domes will be a source of income for the district. Board of Education took actions on personnel items, curriculum and instruction, business items, policy items, and administrative items. The board adopted energy conservation policy. The Board of Education is to respond to security issues by communicating with families in a positive way. And that's the end of my report on school.
Yeah,
So
Mayor?
let me follow up on Daniel's report. I did have a discussion today with Larry Reynolds concerning the air dome that the school board is intending to now put over the soccer lacrosse field at the high school. Dr. Reynolds indicated that they were going to fund the air dome through rental space, similar to the other dome bubble that's in town. It indicated to me that the township would be given first right in terms of rental. So to the extent that our rec department wanted to rent the dome, that it would be rented to us at a discounted rate, but we would be given first right of refusal on the time. He was distinguishing between the current situation where we don't pay for usage of facilities and fields at the school board for our programs, and the dome, which is completely going to be funded through the rental process. And I understood that. So I was certainly supportive of, once they made the decision to go that route, that I understood that the decision to charge the township if we wanted to use the dome, where it came from and how it's different than all of the other activities that we participate in at the school.
Which field?
It's the soccer lacrosse field in the back,
In the middle school?
high school.
High school.
Ms. Leba?
Rob, if that comes to pass, would it be like, say, if the soccer club needs to use it, would they pay, or is the town gonna pay?
No, if any of the clubs want to rent space, then they're going to directly
Pay.
contract with the school board.
Would they get the same discount?
That's
or
between the
do they?
board, between the
Okay.
Board of Education. I would imagine that that would include the same discount. But, you know, from my perspective, I was only looking at it from rec activities, not the quasi-entities like lacrosse, football, soccer. They're already paying
Right.
for. And to the extent that they didn't charge for the space and all of the clubs used it, they wouldn't be able to fund it. So,
So will the fund, if that were to be where we're renting it and paying, is that gonna come out of the recreation utility, or are we gonna set up a separate funding mechanism, or? It's too early.
It's too early to, I mean, I just had the conversation today, but my first thought is that the only entity that really would use it from the township's perspective, besides the quasi-sports clubs, would be the rec.
Right.
And so I directed Lisa to have a discussion with Jill to start thinking about how the township might take advantage of the space being available in the winter time. It's a
Right.
winter time use. So, I mean, to the extent that that the rec department decides that they don't have a use, then so be it.
Right.
And then, you know, each of the sporting organizations will be on their own, as they do now, to contract for indoor time wherever it might be, in Sparta and Randolph, or here in Mount Olive, Hackettstown.
Yeah, okay.
Right, it's no different, it may be cheaper for the sporting organizations at this point, and I understood Larry's perspective in terms of the only way that we're gonna get this done is if we carry the expenses through rental.
So the air dome will only be up in the winter, and in the summer comes down like they do.
That's my understanding. Again, it's not our project, so it was a limited conversation that I had with Dr. Reynolds, but that's what was advised.
Have they gone to the planning, they have to go to the planning board for that too, right?
I don't know, I doubt that they do.
No, it
If
hasn't
they
come
did-
before the plan. I don't think,
If-
I don't think they have to.
Well, it's always been a
Height.
difficult question. No, it's not necessarily height. It's a question of whether or not there's a courtesy review which is required. They're not disturbing any space, as I understand it. It's already a field which is built out, and it's not a building per se.
Right.
So I'm not an expert in the area, and I'm sure that the planning board will make their own determination as to whether or not they believe that the school needs to come in on a courtesy review. It always seems to be somewhat of
A hassle of some sort.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
Gray area, so.
I don't have an opinion one way or another, I just want to ask, because in case if somebody asks me, the answer is we don't know yet.
I think the planning board would ultimately have to make the decision as to whether or not they require a courtesy review for the nature of the project. It's not something that the town council or the administration would take up outside the purview of the planning board. I'm sorry, I interrupted Daniel. I'm sure he has more.
Mount Olive Senior Citizens held its business meeting today, and there wasn't much to report, but that was it. It was a short meeting, and that's the end of my report.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ferrante, anything on environmental lake or library?
The aquatic analysts were out yesterday to survey the lake, so I should have that, the results of the survey shortly. And a couple of weeks ago, I attended the Environmental Commission monthly meeting, and Mara Trippett from the Raritan Headwaters presented the commission with a certificate of recognition for outstanding dedication to the community, for community service in the Community Well Test Program, which took place a couple of weeks ago.
Very nice.
So I'll just
Very nice.
pass that down for the clerk.
Thank you very much, that's nice.
And that's all I have for today.
You want to
Thank
talk
you.
about the lake?
Ms. Laybow, anything on economic, TNR, or open space?
Nothing on TNR economic. Last night Kathy Murphy and I went to the county meeting regarding the grant that we're applying for the Seward Mansion. And so I wasn't able to go to the meeting, neither was Kathy, but we had a little bit important business to attend to. And it was, we of course will not know for another 2 or 3 weeks if they're going to give us the funding or not. However, the plan is this round and next year's round of funding request is going to be for the roof and the cupola. And it's a very expensive project, so we're going to break it in 2 parts. Like, well, if we do get the funding this year, which will be half, we'll save it till next year, we get the whole thing, and then we will start the project. And it was also very interesting that the board, the committee last night, most of the same members have been there for several years now, so they were asking different questions on how's this part of it going, how's that part. So they were very much engaged in the project, so that was, nice to be a part of all that, so we'll see.
Keep our fingers crossed.
Yeah, 2-3 weeks, we should know.
Not too long. Thank you. Mr. Maney, anything on legislative planning or
The
planning?
planning board was canceled. Meeting was canceled.
Thank you. Board of Health is meeting next Wednesday here at 6:30. I know the discussion, I believe, is to go to quarterly meetings versus monthly meetings, because there just isn't enough, it's easier, that's what we're looking at, to see if it makes sense. So that's the only thing on the agenda, I know, with the other typical stuff. That'll be next week. Mr. Roman, anything on Pride or Recreation?
On Pride, we're waiting on Jim Lynch to hear back from JCP&L regarding the light poles at Turkey Brook, so that we can finally go ahead and install decorative banners along the loop of Turkey Brook. And on Recreation, I brought up the discussion on the heels of, Mr. President, your mentioning about the possibly buying the property next door to us. So I brought up the idea of maybe a town rec center concept, and lo and behold, that discussion and idea was already floating around between Buildings and Grounds and Jill. And what they had described, I think, is a great idea. A rec center along the lines of something like a Bridgewater, where it would hold multiple basketball courts, indoor track, an indoor pool. It's just now in the concept idea phase, but I think this is something that we should encourage, because for those of us that do not engage in any rec activities that use Board of Ed facilities, it is sometimes difficult to use those facilities because of time constraints, logistics, and as such. And I think something like this would be a boon, not only for recreation in Mount Olive, but it could also be a source of revenue, because we could also do the same thing that the Board of Ed is planning on doing, and rent out the facility to any other organization that might wish to. Again, this idea is just in the infancy phase, but I was glad to find out that they were already discussing it, and I trying to identify locations, and that's all I have.
Thank you. On that note, I talked to the pastor again next door, and there's a possibility of 2 to 3 acres versus 1. Alex's idea is great, because it was something that we had talked to Sean about years ago. I was interested in that Bridgewater, which I'd like to go visit, because I'm familiar somewhat with that from people that told us, but they actually have all the facilities in there that are actually run by other companies and come in and pay for it. It's not done by the town itself, but basically, ice rink is in there, there's a lot of things in there, but the town gets a benefit because it's lower rates for its residents and higher. But it's something interesting, and Alex has a good point with that too. But we'll see. Property is there, and we'll have to take it from there. Yes?
Yeah, I don't remember whether or not that property's in the Highlands Preservation Area, but it most likely is, which means that it couldn't be used there. Secondly, 2 to 3 acres is not a big enough parcel that you would be able to accommodate that kind of building and parking. Third of all, the cost of doing something like that would be incredible to the township. I mean, you're talking probably somewhere in the $1 million range to put a bubble on a soccer field, let alone build a building with a swimming pool. So while we have been looking for some time for a property that we could at least consider the concept, there are so many hurdles in Mount Olive to having that kind of project that, I mean, I just don't mean to burst bubbles, but I think it's not likely to happen.
As long as it's not the dome bubble, we're okay.
And I do recognize, and I'm cognizant of the enormous expense that something like this would be, and I would not discourage the idea, at least for at least a planning concept. But once the idea, and we do have any firm numbers as far as locations and sites, that we put it up to the voters. let them decide. I think that's something that would definitely affect the residents in, not only in benefit, but in cost. That's something that I would definitely like to see put up for a referendum or vote on by the public.
Yeah,
Again,
I would
this is-
imagine you probably need at least 5 to 10 acres of land to accommodate parking and the building itself.
Right.
And that's without a swimming pool. If you're talking about a swimming pool, you're probably talking about 10 to 20 acres of property in Mount Olive, which is 80% in the Highlands Preservation Area.
That was always the
I mean, if
problem.
you want to start putting capital projects up for a vote, that's fine, that's within your discretion.
Well, there are capital projects and then there are capital projects, But I think that's, it's one of these concepts that if we don't at least go forward and try, then we'll be here another 10, 15 years again and then bringing it back up and just not letting it happen.
Alex, I can tell you that this is something that we've been looking at for the better part of a year, to identify a piece of property in the township where this could be actually accomplished, and we have not found a piece of property where we could even consider to start to move forward with looking at the concept. And I can tell you that 2 acres or 3 acres is not big enough. That's about the size of a Quick Check gasoline. Needs 2 acres to run a quick, because when we tried to bring Quick Check into town, they wouldn't consider any property that was less than 2 acres. So you're talking about something which is on a massive scale in terms of use of property in a town which is 80% in the preservation area, and most, if not all, of the other properties, other than on the trade zone side, which is now on the other side, is built out. So before we sold the 57 acres, that's a piece of property which could have been developed into a town project, notwithstanding the fact that there are restrictions on that property which don't allow that type of building, that would have to be removed before you could even do that. It's not an appropriate location for a number of different reasons, but for this type of use, and it's under contract at this point. So I welcome the concept. If you can identify a piece of land in Mount Olive, you know what, I think that the Buildings and Grounds Department and Recreation would be all over it. I can tell you that Lisa in my office has been pushing this concept for the better part of a year in terms of let's look to see whether or not it's something that's feasible. And the first stumbling block, which is the biggest one, in terms of even considering the project, is where would you put it? Because we haven't been able to identify a location that is suitable.
That is the biggest problem, is land. Mr. Maney, did you have a comment?
I think it's a great idea, but I think if you put it in the hands of the voters, whenever it costs taxpayers money, they vote no. So putting it in the taxpayers' hands, I don't think it'll pass. My personal feeling.
Well, we'll have to worry about that, I guess, if we can find the property first.
That's true.
First thing, identify first.
So first thing is first. Thank you.
I have
Mr.
a-
Stewart, anything? Ms. I'm
I just
sorry.
want to ask Rob, the mayor, a question. If there's a huge area that is already being used as a type of a recreation thing, and you're going to change it to another recreation project, would it have issues with the Highlands?
Well, it depends what you're talking about, Colleen, because the Highlands is, in the first instance, is particularly concerned with impervious coverage.
I got you.
So if you're talking about a baseball field that's no longer being used as a baseball field and now you're putting in a building, you would need Highlands redevelopment designation before you could even get there. The township has the ability to grant waivers with respect to the preservation area up to 25% of the existing impervious coverage. So in other words, you can go up to 125% on your property without having to go to the Highlands and going through that whole process. And the township has that as used. I don't know if you got the correspondence today, but our new zoning officer was just approved through the Highlands as a designee for allowing the township to grant such waivers without having to go to the Highlands Preservation, the Highlands Council. So the answer to your question is, if you were to rip up the parking lot, all the parking lots at Turkey Brook Park, and put in a building, Yes,
Because you're exchanging one pervious coverage for the other.
Yes,
Yeah.
but I think there would be all other factors that are involved, because I don't know, you can take from one area and bring it to another
Combine it,
area.
yeah.
The Highlands in effect has basically shut down development in Mount Olive Township, except for the portion of town which is on the northbound side of Route 46, which is currently the trade zone. So the BASF property, the property that's currently owned by Rockefeller Group. Other than that, there are only small parcels in town which are in the, that are not in the preservation area, which could be further
How
developed.
about the south end of International?
The south end, you're talking about where the,
Restaurants?
I would imagine that the shopping center itself is not in the preservation area.
Okay, I'll talk to you about it later. I got an
Oh, I
idea.
have
You know what
a
I'm-
good idea what you're talking about, but I
Okay.
don't think it's appropriate.
No, okay. You don't think it'll work?
Mr. Stewart, anything
I
on
don't think it'll
MOTV or community action?
Just, Community Action has now just started planning for next year.
Thank you. Anyone from the public wish to be heard? Seeing none, close to the public. Any council comments? Mr. Amianda?
None.
Mr. Ferrante?
Just want to congratulate Mr. Stewart on Businessman of the Year.
Ms. Laybow?
Yes, I just have two comments. First, I'll just do this, the sad note first. Bridget's sister, Colleen Quinn, actually works in my office. She's our first impressions manager. And so it's, you know, it just touches you in so many different directions. You have no idea. It's truly a small world. So it's very upsetting getting emails from the office and everybody being concerned. And I know, Tim, they're not related to you, because when Colleen first started with our office, I called her and asked if she was related to you, and she said no. And congratulations, Mr. Stewart.
Thank you.
It's an incredible honor, and it's certainly well-deserved. Since the day I met you, you've just been absolutely fantastic, friendly, informative, helpful, just a great guy all the way around. Thank you.
Thank you.
What'd you think of that?
Be careful, that's on tape.
Yeah, but I'm only speaking the truth.
Mr.
Only
Mania?
speaking
I
the
too would like
truth.
to congratulate Mr. Stewart as being Business Person of the Year.
Mr. Stewart?
Well
would you like to
deserved.
Congratulate yourself.
No, just humbled at it, but no, condolences go out to the family again for the loss.
Mr. Roman?
Well, it goes without saying. Actually, when I first met Greg, you know, I was impressed by his credentials and his life history and business history. And then when I got to know him, found out he's an okay guy. So congratulations again. I'd like to comment on Miss Quinn's tragic, and you know, without knowing all the facts, I have to, you know, it's a murder, and it just makes one want to, you know, be mindful of how short and precious this life is, and that any petty differences that we have among families should just go by the wayside, because at any given moment, you know, they're before the grace of God. So thank you.
Thank you. Same here, and Mr. Stewart, congratulations to you as well. And I just want to give a shout out to Tim and his staff, because with the mess of this weather the way it's been,
Yes, great
and some
job.
issues that I pointed out to him, they got on those pretty quickly to clear up some grass in areas, but it's been so difficult, I'm sure, trying to keep everything going the way the rain was coming, everything's growing faster and you can't cut anything. So,
Thank you for the hot
very
weather.
much for staying on top of those things. With that, I'd like a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you all.